This is episode 3 of the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide podcast. Hello, I'm Darlene Victoria, and welcome to another episode of the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide. This podcast sets out to inspire and motivate you to take action in starting or growing your business. Every other week on the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide, I'll be addressing your common questions or sharing your feedback. In order to do that, I need to hear from you. No, I want to hear from you. So you can contact me by phone at any time at 973-936-9118. And that's a direct call-in line where you can leave your questions or feedback on a voicemail recording. Or you can go online to dvpodcasts.com/inspired questions and use the contact form to get in touch. So let's get on with today's topic. It's all about confidence and how having confidence affects your business. Just this week, I had the pleasure of chatting with a longtime business associate. We've been in business since 2008 and have watched each other's business models grow and change. So one thing we discussed was about how after being in business for a certain period of time, you gain confidence through experience, lessons learned, and by working hard on improving and growing your skills. So confidence plays a huge role in launching and growing a business. Too little of it, and you may end up doing yourself a huge disservice. Confidence will get better over time, trust me. I know this from personal experience. But to help you not fall into the traps many entrepreneurs that have come before you fall into, I'm going to share with you in this episode 3 ways that can ensure you set yourself up on a path that will allow you to grow confidently along with your business. So here we go. First tip or idea is to do self-talk. Heck, I'd like to even just call it to pump yourself up. So here's a little story. In 2008, I started my own virtual assistant business. And while I had the skills and strengths needed to perform the actual work that I was marketing, I never ran a business before. Meeting with clients, networking, and marketing, that was all new to me. And they scared the heck out of me. I struggled early on with self-perception and how I was being perceived by others. Did I appear smart enough? Was I professional enough? Heck, some days I even asked if I was good enough to be in business. So my confidence didn't take a nosedive, and because I decided I wanted to, or rather needed to succeed, I realized I was going to have to take control of those feelings. So my resolution was to self-talk and to pump myself up before these very nerve-wracking performances, so to speak. And back then they had to be performances because otherwise the confidence or lack thereof would have shown. So before any meeting or client consultation or even a podcast interview way back when, I would self-talk. And it went something like this. You've got this, Darlene. You are smart, you are skilled, and you can hold a conversation like nobody's business. All of this would actually be repeated over and over again, but in addition to that phrase, I acted like a complete idiot. I jumped up and down, shouted a whole bunch, and just got the nerves out. And guess what? It worked. I carried on this ritual for about a year, and eventually, I didn't really need it anymore. So it all comes down to finding a way to work out your nerves. Pump yourself up and feel confident in the moment, even if for a moment, or more importantly, for as long as that consultation, meeting, or marketing meeting, or networking meeting lasts. Tip 2 is another way to ensure self-confidence is to come prepared. Always be prepared. In fact, let's take that one step further and prepare for the worst. Always have a plan. I think the fear of what if really trips us up. And so prepare for that what if. What if I go to do a speech and I completely mess up? Well, have a backup plan. What if that happens? What are you going to do to recover? As long as you've prepared and come prepared and have those plans in place, then you will be much better for it and confident. Back during my early podcast days, I tested out doing a few live podcasts. My very first live show was a train wreck, like a complete train wreck. Everything went wrong. It shook me up pretty bad, and at that time I had vowed to never do a live podcast again. Well, of course, a year later, I found myself doing another live show. However, that second time around, I knew that by being prepared for the worst, I could go into the show feeling more confident and comfortable and secure with what was about to happen. I created what I called the SOS speech for that particular show. It didn't matter if I needed to use a speech or not. I had something prepared in case everything went wrong, callers weren't calling in, or there were major technical difficulties, and I was the only one on the show. So that SOS speech was my backup plan. The point here is to take the time to prepare, to learn, and grow. Remember, being prepared is half the victory. Finally, confidence can play a huge role in self-worth, or more importantly, charging what you are worth. So starting out, you may feel that you need to charge less because you're new to the industry. Well, that's not so. Ruth Martin of Maplewood, VA has some great advice that she offered on this topic. Here's what she had to say.
I don't think that undercutting your rates when you're new is ever justified. And here's why. All of the skills and all of the knowledge that you had as an employee doesn't go poof when you put on your entrepreneurial cape and, you're suddenly a business owner and you've launched your business. If anything, it escalates. Because it takes a certain type of person and a personality to embrace what it means to be a business owner. And in that business owner mindset, you have a ton of expenses and you're wearing a lot more hats. So if anything, your rates are increasing to compensate all of the internal expenses that an employer would have paid on the behalf of an employee. Now, you don't really want to lead with that in your marketing because, frankly, nobody cares. That's an internal issue. In retail, some in the service industries, the service providers like VAs are, is what is my cost? They're like, I don't know my cost, so I'm going to drop my rate not ever knowing what my cost is. And your cost, in the way that I look at it, is what is the absolute bottom line price that you can take per hour and still be able to cover all of the internal expenses that are associated with being a business owner. So first you need to document what those internal expenses would be, and that's your taxes, that's the cost of electricity, the cost of your internet service, the cost of your cell service if you're having phone calls. All of those internal costs, cost of any office supply products, brochures, business cards, you name it, that it needs to be broken down, and you determine that's my cost. So, and then you determine how much profit do you want to make? What is your keep out of that? And then profit goes on top of cost, and that's your retail price. That is your hourly rate. If you're charging $20 or $25 an hour, you're not leaving very much profit in there so that you can grow, you can take training, you can get certifications if that's applicable to the services that you do, that you can purchase memberships into VA associations and organizations so you have access to RFVPs. There's a lot of expenses behind the scene that everybody says, oh, well, isn't that just part of it? It is, but you have to look at cost, profit, and your final price.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for sharing those sound words of advice. Ruth will actually be on a future episode talking more about her business, selecting a niche, and marketing. Now, let's hear from Lee Drozak of Lee Drozak Biz to talk a little bit more about confidence and charging what you are worth. Here's Lee.
So when I first started, I wasn't confident enough to charge what I'm worth. But after spending a lot of time and energy and money honing my skills, I have no problem charging the value that I charge now. I don't discount. People come to me because I have a specific skill, and if they're willing to pay for that, then they're my ideal client. If they're looking for a cut rate or a discount, then they need to go to someone else because I've invested too much in my business, and if they can't invest in theirs, then we're just not a good fit. I think it's inexperience as a business owner that people tend to charge the lowest rate possible. I think that they compare themselves to their competition, thinking that they've been in business for X amount of years, or they're so knowledgeable that I can't possibly charge what other people are charging, when that in fact is not true. If you have a skill and you are good at that skill, you need to charge the going rate for that skill. And you need to just realize that you're bringing something to the table you're bringing a skill to the table that someone else doesn't have. And if they're willing to contact you and they're willing to work with you, then you should be charging what you're worth, because you're bringing them your knowledge, your experience, and your expertise.
Thank you so much, Lee, for sharing your insight on charging what you are worth and confidence. Lee is the associate that I spoke with the other day that inspired this podcast. So Lee, thank you for being my inspiration. Remember, time is the most important factor when it comes to building confidence. Over time, your confidence will grow as you gain new knowledge, go through certain experiences, and build upon your already strong foundation. Join me next week when my guest will be Patty Kabik of Expert Support Services. You can connect with me on Twitter at Darlene Victoria and on Facebook at facebook.com/Darlene Victoria Work. Make it a great week, everyone. Thanks for listening. This is Darlene Victoria, signing out. This podcast was brought to you by The Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide to Living and Growing Successfully, a workbook to inspire and spark your entrepreneurial soul. You can pick up the book at inspiredguide.darlenevictoria.com. Use code InspiredGuidePodcast at checkout to receive a discount. Stop dreaming and start doing.